Could Florida State's 2024 offense be even better than the 2023 version?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Today, we're going to do some fact or fiction, if you will, on how good Florida State's offense is going to be. It's going to range from the quarterback play, comparing stats from last season, and most importantly, making one's own determination. Will Florida State's offense as a whole be better than the 23 version? So let's get started right away. And I've got a long list of questions, going to kind of mark them off as I go. And I want everybody to kind of think about this holistically. Again, it's not necessarily that I'm asking a question about a specific player. Like I'll bring up Malik Benson today. But how good will a player's development and how much they do this season, in the end, the overall question and the last question I will ask, will the offense be better this year as a whole for the Noles? Yes or no? It's no gray area, yes or no. And if you want to expand on it, you want to answer a question like that at the end, come up with your own summary, that's fine. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Post it on YouTube. All right, so first thing, last year the Noles averaged 34.6 points per contest. It's pretty good, especially when you have a team that got out in front of a lot of squads, kind of just ate up the clock in the second half. Sometimes Jordan was handing off more than you might have thought he would have, etc. 34.6 is pretty good. They had a good defense. They could hold teams down. Will Florida State score that many this year? There's a couple of things you need to think about with this question. First off, how good will the defense be? Because teams plan their play calling around reality, or at least they should. If you've got a porous defense, you got to score more. Well, Florida State's defense will be very good again this year, barring something completely unforeseen. So you have to look at it from two perspectives there as well. Probably going to have a lot of advantageous situations with field position. If you're getting 3-and-out, sacks, turnovers, etc., which I expect the Noles to do quite well, the offense is going to be in a good spot. All right, that's good news. But you did lose your quarterback. I mean, there's no way of saying it nicely. Losing Jordan Travis is rough. That's a very good football player. But you got DJ Uiagalelei coming over from Oregon State via Clemson for 3 years. Can he at least be serviceable against the big-time programs that are going to play on the schedule? And can he be pretty dominant against teams that, quite frankly, don't have the same talent that Noles do? Probably at least 7 teams on the schedule. Florida State should win by double digits. And I'm being very, very conservative with that. Might be closer to 9. But at the same time, you got to have the right mindset and everything else to go with it. So defense going to be good. Quarterback should be pretty good. Offensive line's pretty experienced. Got one of the best left tackles in the league. And what I think is arguably maybe the best running back room in the ACC. It's a little bit under the radar, but they just have a lot of good football players. I think this could be a team that averages as much, if not more. I'm going to say yes, they do, but it's going to be for reasons that most people don't think of. Most people think linear. Wow, the quarterback's not as good. You can't score as many. Well, no, that's not true. Your defense is going to be really good. Excuse me. And number 2, they're going to be in a situation where that offensive line is mostly back. I just don't think they'll have as many negative plays, and I think the run blocking will be better this year. Like I've harped on I don't know how many times about how poorly they played against Clemson last year. Well, Clemson doesn't have that same linebacker corps coming back either. They had a couple guys go to the league. They're not going to be as good up front on defense. That linebacker group is tremendous. So that's one more game they should score a little bit more, and that game's at home too. If you look at it, I just think Florida State's schedule, I mean, it's very manageable. They play some tough teams. You know, the road game against Notre Dame is probably the hardest game up north late in the year. That's not a great ideal situation. They play Miami on the road, but they're used to playing there. I just don't think it's a schedule where the Noles can't get it done. It's iffy. If I had to lay money on this, I would pass. But if I have to guess, I'll say they go over 34.6. I'd love to hear your opinion on that. We'll get to a whole bunch more here right now, though. Score at least 32 rushing touchdowns. The reason I asked that number Florida State scored that total last year. So fact or fiction, as a whole, again, this is going to be a really deep running back group. Really deep. Will Florida State score 32 or more rushing touchdowns? If you remember, here's a stat that a lot of people that just kind of know of Florida State but don't follow them don't think about. Jordan Travis was not a runner last year in the same sense that he had been prior. I think they were trying to keep him healthy. Obviously, it didn't end up working out, but they were trying to keep him healthy and get him to the draft and show his ability to throw football. That's just my opinion, but take it for what it's worth. Well, if you look at his totals last year, it was down, like the number of attempts, like way down compared to what he normally does. He only had 73 last year. The year before, in 2022, he had 82. And that's another 9, and he played in 2 more games. So I guess really it wasn't a terribly big difference, but they'd already started that transformation because back half of 2022, if you really want to be honest, the light just completely went on for him, and he took off. They didn't have to run him as much. 2021 for Jordan Travis, the totals are a little different, 134. So back half of 2022 to modern day, different. And that's why he's going to get an opportunity to play in the NFL. So the rushing totals, he didn't score a ton of them, but here's an interesting way to look at it. Rushing touchdowns is just a finality. DJ Uiagalelei is a tank. He's 250 pounds, give or take. That's a very strong human being. He's got man strength now. He's been through 4 years of college weight training. I think he's going to be a weapon in goal line and short yardage in general with basic plays that, you've seen forever in football. They'll probably score 3 or 4 touchdowns with him inside the 1 yard line this year. Those are freebies. And then you look at Rodell's in the backfield. He transferred from Alabama. You got Jalen Lucas transferred from Indiana. You got Sam Singleton. It's a guy that not many people know about that's good. And obviously Lawrence Toafili is the bell cow, among others. That doesn't count the freshman or anything. I mean, there's just so many good running backs. Even if, and knock on wood, they go, a couple players down in a game, pick whichever one. It's not like they're going to throw in a running back that can't tote the football. It's not like they couldn't use Jalen Lucas just on jet sweeps and different things like that to get teams off balance. They start focusing on him, then they throw the ball the other. They have so many ways to keep teams off balance to get down the field. I think they'll dink and dunk a little bit more than what I've probably given them credit for. I still think they're going to be a deep passing team because they got so much speed. But once they get inside the 10, they've got the running backs, they've got the offensive line, and a monster at quarterback to punch it in. Florida State, you might even argue on a side bet here. Inside the 10 number of rushing touchdowns in the major FBS, Army, Navy, option teams don't count. In the major FBS, Florida State might be the number 1 school in the country for rushing touchdowns this year. You could say that. I'm talking about programs you think of traditionally that are dominant. Okay, Michigan, Texas, Florida State, Southern Cal, etc. The Noles might be number 1. I'm going over on the 32 touchdowns, and I could be wrong because they're again, I still think they'll be a deep passing team. Sometimes those deep passes just get you down to the red zone. It doesn't mean it automatically results in 6 points. So I'm going over on 32, and the key is DJ Uiagalelei. I just think that he will be a guy that while he isn't going to have totals that are crazy for the yardage, more important total here, like 2023, if you look at Jordan Travis's numbers, he only had 176 yards rushing, but he had 7 scores. They still used him around the goal line and a couple magical runs too. I think DJ will get similar numbers, but without the same style and with all the ability to make guys miss. He'll just be a power guy, and that's totally fine. Number 3. This one is one of the harder ones because not only is DJ the new signal caller, it's also a player that is going to be throwing to some new receivers. You're losing Keon, you're losing Jaheim, you're losing Johnny. That is a wallop to your receiving corps and your number 1 tight end. Plus Biscuit left. He transferred to Arizona State, the big tight end. Last year, they only had 25 touchdowns, though. And I think that total is pretty much a good barometer for this year. It's just, they don't have as many go-get-it, jump ball guys. Losing Biscuit, who could be a red zone guy. It's harder for me to see. And I'm going to ask about Kyle Morlock here in just a minute. But I think the total will actually go down, and it's not because the receivers are bad. It's just there's not as much cohesion. I'm going under on the 25, but it'll be like 22 to 24. because Florida State's running game will be really, really good. They won't have to throw it as much. They're going to control the clock and beat teams up, and they got that defense. I think they will take fewer chances this year. Florida State will still throw the ball down the field on obvious play action opportunities, 2nd and 2, 3rd down and 1s. They'll take some shots, and they'll be effective at it. Don't get me wrong. I think they absolutely will. But I don't think it'll result in 25 or more touchdowns. I just think they'll run the ball once they get in the red zone because they can. Sometimes it's just the easier path of resistance, and that's totally okay. If you have a different opinion, again, please comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say on YouTube. It's a lot of fun to talk about this kind of stuff. But we'll get to Kyle Morlock and some other questions here in just a second on Locked On Seminoles. Have you downloaded the Gametime app yet? It is your opportunity to get last-minute tickets and all kinds of different things that you want right from the fingertips on your smartphone. So, for an example, you can get last-minute ticket deals that save you up to 60% off buying for a concert, a movie, an NBA game, NFL game, whatever it might be, Florida State, etc. You can get up to 60% off. They also have opportunities with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. They also have toggling for, like, looking at the different features really quick. I'm not the most patient guy. I know when I'm on the app, I like to get through it quickly. In a couple of clicks, I can look up a Florida State game, NBA game, whatever it is, very quickly. So you can get around the app no matter how much experience you have with a smartphone. It's not very hard. Also, they've got a lowest price guarantee that you can get 110% of the difference if you find another company that has a lower ticket price. That's pretty cool. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets or anything else with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem Locked On College for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. I mentioned a moment ago that we were going to talk about Kyle Morlock. He was a guy that was just buried in a really good tight end depth chart last year, but still had 19 receptions for 255 yards. He's probably going to ascend towards the top. We got West as a guy, got the incoming freshman, real good, etc. But most likely, barring injury, Kyle Morlock will be the top guy for the Noles in 2024. Will he go past these numbers? 19 for 255. I think that's pretty safe. So I went ahead. If you think he's going to go under that, I'd love to hear why. I argue strongly against it. But I just did one thing. If you want to talk about yardage, by all means, I'm curious to hear what you have to say. But will Kyle catch 30 or more passes in 2024? That would be, to get to 30, it'd be 11 more than last year, but there's no Jaheim Bell. And just for fun here, let's see. What did Jaheim get last season? If you just give him half of what Jaheim did, there's an opportunity for quite a bit of additional production. He had 39 catches for 503 yards and 2 scores. Now, Jaheim's a heck of an athlete. I'm not sure too many guys are as athletic as him. He was the perfect H-back for Florida State and Mike Norvell. But I think Kyle will go over 30. And I think 35-ish is about right. I don't know about touchdowns and yards because he might be the other guy in the red zone. He could actually be the reason Florida State doesn't get over that 32 total I mentioned a minute ago with the rushing scores. He's an inviting red zone target. It's kind of surprising, even though he was a backup, he didn't score a touchdown last year. He will score a touchdown this season. I can pretty much guarantee it. Next up, let's talk about passing touchdowns and all of that stuff in kind of a really specific area. Third down passing. It's the crux. If you do not effectively throw the ball on third downs, you're not good. I don't care what level it is. Even a team like Navy's got to hit a few third down passes in big games a lot of times to win. And quite honestly, when you don't, doesn't matter to the team, you struggle. So for third down passing, they only had 2 touchdowns last year. Shocking to me. Florida State's play action game and their early down passing concepts and play calls were great, and Jordan executed well. But they only had 2 last year. That's an easy say, oh, they're going to get more than that. Well, no kidding. I'm going to say, will they have at least 5? I think they're going to have to not necessarily need it, but to win enough to get to the playoff, I think they would have to do that. Against better teams, you're going to have to go to third down more often to convert and get to the next set of downs. And I also think that third down passing in the red zone is still important. You must have balance. against the quality competition. Third down passes, 3rd and 6, you can score a touchdown, but you can't on 3rd and 1, 2. You can come out in 13 personnel, 1 running back, 3 running and 3 tight ends, and still throw it. Maybe you throw it to West, whatever. I think they're going to be able to do that. And DJ's used to that kind of offensive scheme. They ran similar when he was at Oregon State, so it wouldn't be shocking. A little more play action, a little more boot. That's really basic, trying to get the ball in the flat to the athletes. Florida State's got them all over the place. Jalen Lucas, etc. I think that's pretty interesting. 2 last year is still shocking to me when you've got a guy like Jordan Travis, but it is what it is. This year, I think they'll be more efficient, especially down in the red zone with that. And here's a little additional forecast. They'll have conservatively one of the top 10 red zone offenses in college football this next year. They have so much experience on offense that will behoove the Seminoles, and it'll be a very big part of their offense. Red zone passing. Last year, Florida State was off the charts. 12 touchdowns in the red zone. I don't think I'm just right out the bat. I don't think they'll get 12 again. The running game and the passing game, I think, will be mixed. 8 to 10, I think, is very doable. Part of that was Jordan Travis buying time, making plays, Keon Coleman, etc. If they get more than 12 with the first-year starting quarterback in this scheme, that means things went really well. I'm going to say 8 to 10 is my projection. I'm curious what other people think. This is not a stat that I'd followed for like a long time or anything, but it makes sense when you've got a guy that's at the end of his college career that started for 4 years, etc. He's going to be good at it. It's just a number of reps. But at the same time, Jordan Travis, while a magician, still made it happen when other teams knew he was going to throw. So tip of the cap to Jordan in the offense. But I think DJ and his group this year, again, it'll be balanced, will be interesting. Malik will have probably the most touchdowns inside the red zone. That's not a shocker. But it could be somebody like Morlock because he's a big-bodied guy that's an experienced player at tight end. DJ's used to throwing to guys like that. So maybe that works out for him. Next, it's why you were so good on 3rd down, probably. First down passing last year, the totals, I'm just going to read them just because they're so good. 1,409 yards for the Noles, 11 touchdowns. So they beat you on early downs. Teams that are really confident in their quarterback will throw it on 1st and 2nd down and not only do it, but they'll have a lot of success. Norvell and Tokars and all those guys, they did a good job of scheming it up, putting their playmakers in an opportunity to have advantages. A leverage situation where a team's playing a defense on a certain down away, and then you come up with something. Getting Keon on a safety, whatever it is. Well, it's the same staff. I understand that the personnel has changed, but I trust those guys because they've proven it over and over. That's first. And second, even though it's 1,409 yards and 11 touchdowns, I think they could go over both if they throw the ball down the field a lot with the play action. It's possible. But the number I still think will be slightly less just because I trust Jordan Travis playing in the same offense for 4 years. I think the number will be good, but I think it'll be below 1,409 and below 11. That's the question. Can they get over 1,409 yards on first downs? Possibly. But I think it's closer to 1,000, maybe 1,200. Jordan Travis was a magician. Do not discount that. The 11 touchdowns, it's possible. And the next question that I'm going to bring up is why I don't think this is going to end up being the case. I just trust last year's team with the playmakers in 50-50 ball situations better. Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, and Jaheim Bell were just proven. I need to see it to think they're going to win as many 50-50 balls, and some of those were touchdowns. It's just true. You throw the ball down the field to Johnny Wilson, it puts you in a position to score. He won battles that other guys didn't. He's 6'6.5", 230-some pounds. Keon obviously kind of speaks for itself, and Jaheim was just very unique. But that's just part of it. You have to find a way to spread the ball around more this year, and that brings up this question. This is hilarious. I didn't even realize this until today. I'd forgotten. The leading receiver last year for the Noles was Keon. Not a shocker. Without looking, how many catches do you think he had in 2023? The total would be 50. He had 658 yards, averaged 13.2, and scored 11 times. Nobody else came close to him. Johnny Wilson was at 41. That's semi-close. Jaheim Bell was 39. And they had a few guys around the 20 mark. They had 20, 21, and 19 for Benson, Tofili, and then Morlock. I mean, they were a dominant to our three guys kind of passing team. Will somebody have more than Keon Coleman, the 50? I'm going yes, but in a different variety than what we had last year. The 50 receptions is really not that high. But again, Florida State didn't have a playmaker. They had multiple playmakers. They had three. Malik Benson, I think, catches 60. It's not for the reason I want. It's because you lost three guys that are going to get a chance to get paid. Fair enough, but, players leave. I think Florida State will benefit in some manner from it, though, because teams won't know where the ball's going unless Malik just gets really hot. He seems to be their most likely. But what about Hakeem Williams and so many other guys? We've had these debates before. I have no idea. I'm not even going to bring up the question. If you want to comment on it on the YouTube channel, feel free. But Florida State really, to me, I don't know who the number 2 guy is. And it might be a scenario that every week the defenses they go against have to guess. They have to guess. Okay, Benson's their guy. But who are we trying to take away if he's not in the game? Or if we do, like, who's the most likely guy afterwards? I think Florida State's going to spread it around a lot, including Jalen Lucas. We talked about that a little bit here on Locked On Seminoles. The transfer from Indiana is electric. Use him at running back, and I think he'll catch the football quite a bit, and Tofili as well. So if Tofili ended up being the second leading receiver with like 37 catches, it wouldn't shock me. And then like 4 other guys between 20 and 30. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But I'm going Benson over 50. Curious to hear what you all think about that, because that's honestly about where it should be in a normal year, 60 or more. And I just think Florida State will have a lot of balance after that. We'll come back with more questions on this edition of Fact or Fiction with Florida State football. All right. Today's opportunity to get in on the action with FanDuel is better than ever. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home the big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It is also an opportunity for you to kind of mix things up. Are you tired of watching Fox Sports, ESPN all the time on your TV? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for your everyday to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. All right, here's the last installment of the Fact or Fiction for the 2024 Florida State offense. A few more questions that I think are kind of funny in some ways because we take it for granted how good the talent was last year, but this year's team's going to be good too, so don't undervalue the Noles. All right. Will there be anybody as good as Keon or Johnny or Jaheim this year? Well, that depends on your perspective. This one, out of all the questions, it's fact or fiction, but it's not a total. This is 100% subjective. And here's what I mean. If you want to look at it like and say, well, Malik's going to be their best receiver, I think most people would lean that way. Malik Benson, the transfer from Alabama. Is he going to be as good? Well, he might be more valuable. So how do you want to – it's kind of like the old NBA Player of the Year award. Michael Jordan could have got it 10 years in a row. He hardly ever won it because they spread it around. How do you evaluate the meaning of the award? Well, in this question, Benson might be more valuable than any of those three because he could be the guy that takes the top off. He's really fast. No doubt about that. And he opens up the running game and makes it easier for all the other players. If he's the number 1 option on a deep shot and DJ decides, you know what, it's not there. They doubled him. He's still clearing out and they've got 2 guys on him. Okay. Well, everybody else is one-on-one. DJ's a 50-year senior, so there's a different value to what Malik's doing, and that's not something that a lot of people will look at. I'm not saying that he's physically more talented than Keon or Johnny. He's got to prove that, And I don't think he will be, but his value might be higher. So you can evaluate this any way you want. I'm curious to what people think. Malik Benson is very important to Florida State's offense, though. With the playmakers they lost, they absolutely must find guys that are deep shot possibilities that consistently catch the ball. Right now, Malik looks like the most likely, and he's got a history of showing that speed. So I want to see him make those plays. He could be more valuable than what even Keon was for much of last year, because teams are going to have to respect that down the field shot. All right, this one is arguably the hardest question. And I've kind of saved this, and I've been thinking about it myself. I went back and forth on it. Will this year's Florida State offensive line be better than the 2023 version? A few things to think about. Again, football is a team sport. So it's not just are you blocking well, big moments, consistency. You're blocking for a completely different kind of quarterback. DJ obviously does not reminisce in the realm that Jordan Travis did with how he makes guys miss and can just take off and score. But he does have a cannon, and if you give him time, he's going to find somebody and create big plays. They're also going to be a unit that's very experienced with another year in the system to block for really good running backs. I think that's the most important thing to think about with this question. And everybody, it's subjective. Will the 24 unit be better than 23? The chemistry may not be the same. Who knows? But you're having most of the guys back, and you also got depth that other teams don't. I mean, Florida State, what do you think? 8 guys are good enough to start, give or take? I mean, they added like Ferguson. They added Richie Leonard. You still have Keandre Jones. There's no guarantee on the lineup being any particular way right now, like Maurice Smith, Darius Washington. I'm not sure how good Byers and some of these guys will be, but you would think another year in the system, it'll work. The only question I really have, again, is how well will they protect for a QB who's just flat out nowhere near as mobile, especially lateral mobility to make the first blitzer or pass rush. Like if there's a bust, can he make guys miss? That's my concern. But I think the run blocking will trump it. I'm going to say the O-line's better this year because, again, I've said it a million times, they were terrible in the Clemson game last year, run block. They had 22 yards rushing. That's inexcusable. They will do better running and do so consistently. So I'm going to go thumbs up on a better offensive line overall because I don't think they'll, have a bad game like that, at least to that level. And I still think the experience factor, experienced running backs, tight ends, et cetera, they still got experienced players to help in the pass protection. They'll be pretty good at it. I'm not concerned about sack totals as much because you're probably going to take an acceptance, if you will, that DJ's going to get hit some. He's not as mobile. Okay, great. But he's going to throw the ball down the field and he's going to make big plays. So that's good. I'm going FSU's O-line is a little bit better than last year. All right. Last question here. Will the second receiver for Florida State, I think it'll be Malik Benson that leads the team by a landslide. How many catches for the second receiver / over under 35? Now that sounds like a low total. And the first thing most people will probably say, oh, that's over. Will it? Think about the list in general. Number one, Jalen Lucas is going to take up some catches, and there's no doubt Tofili will. Balance. Okay? Tofili was like around 2021 last year. Jalen Lucas could have 30. He could even be the second leading receiver because they'll use some 2-back sets, some 21 personnel, Rodell, whatever. Rodell's another guy who can catch the ball. I think they're going to have a ton of guys between say 17, 18 catches and about 30, 32. Kentron, Darion, Deuce. It depends on injuries and stuff like that too. I get it. But then you got Hakeem. You got Jaylen Brown. You just have so many guys with speed, size, athleticism. There's quite a bit of experience. They could have 6 guys between, let's say, 12 and 25, and it wouldn't shock me. And maybe one more guy that has 32. Somebody, one of the running backs. And then you have Malik Benson with 61 catches for 850 yards and 7 touchdowns, something like that. That's fine because Kyle Morlock is also in that list, et cetera. Jack West, et cetera. They have so many different guys. Spreading the ball around works. It's been going on forever. The old West Coast offense. in the NFL, Don Coryell and all those guys created back in the 70s. That could work in a sense of the overall thought process. They're not running the West Coast, obviously. But I think that's good for Florida State because teams will not know where to focus their efforts. Having this many guys will play itself out. And, of course, now that I'm saying that, there will be somebody that catches 48 balls or something, and I'll be way off. But my guess is they will not have somebody else catch 35, and Malik is by far their number one. Just my guess. If you think it's something different, I'd love to hear why. It's not a guarantee on anything on here that I said, by the way, but that's my take. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this show. Thank you very much for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and make sure that you share this podcast wherever you do. Appreciate it. Everybody have a great weekend. We will see you again later. I am Brian Smith. Take care.